And there was a long silence, and then Brahma spoke. "All of you," said Brahma, "have done your duty. You fought well. It was a hard-fought battle. The demons have proved stubborn. True, some of the demons were killed by me, some by Vishnu, some by Rudra. But many were killed by none else but you, O Marisi, O Agni, O Vyavya, O Surya." The rest of the gods nodded their heads, their faces flushed with the thrill of victory. But Marisi hung his head in shame. "What are you ashamed of?" seeing Marisi's dejection. "There is nothing to be ashamed of," said Marisi, looking at his feet. "We did not fight, we ran away." "I am ashamed of that," said Marisi, looked up at Brahma. "You did not fight. You all let loose the arrows of fear upon the demons. And when they fled, you pursued them, cornered them, cut off their escape. Is that running away? No, it is not running away. It is strategy," said Brahma. The gods, including Marisi, looked down at the ground, each wondering what Brahma would say next. "Why did you not stand by Indra? Why did you not help him when he needed you most? Why did you leave him alone in the fight?" "'Cause," said a timid voice, "we were afraid." "Afraid?" exclaimed Brahma. "What were you afraid of? Afraid of losing our heads?" "Perhaps," said another god, trying to hide a smirk. Brahma raised his eyebrows. "That was not the wisest thing you could have said," he said. "Do you think I do not know why you left Indra alone?" "Of course not," said the gods in unison. "How could you leave him alone when he needed you most?" "You left him because you were afraid," said Brahma. "Fear had entered into your hearts. You forgot who you were. You forgot that you were gods. Is that how a god should behave?" "No," said the gods in unison. "But where was that? Where was your courage when it mattered the most? You were not afraid when you attacked the Devas in groups, when you cornered the Devas, when you harassed them, when you killed them. But you were afraid when only one Devano remained, standing tall against the whole army of heaven, protecting the gods, protecting the earth, protecting all of us." "Yes, we were afraid," said a god, hanging his head in shame. "All of us were afraid. But you must understand," continued the god, "we were afraid for ourselves, not for Indra. Each one of us was afraid of losing his or her head. Each one of us was afraid of being defeated. None of us thought of winning the battle alone. None of us thought of defeating the demons alone. We all wanted to win together. We all wanted to defeat the demons together. Now, if that is cowardice, then yes, all of us were cowards. But what was Indra? Was Indra also afraid?" "No," said Brahma. "Indra was not afraid." And above, the gods assembled. They watched Indra in the flicker of lightning, standing tall, Vajra ablaze, laughing in the rain. "He has done it," one god murmured, admiration tinged with envy. "While we trembled, he descended alone," sighed another. Some muttered softly, "Who will now dare to doubt Indra?" Shouts rose high. Yet within each god stirred a strange feeling, gladness at deliverance, a prick of shame, knowing the victory belonged to Indra alone. Above, the gods assembled. They watched Indra in the flicker of lightning, standing tall, Vajra ablaze, laughing in the rain. "He has done it," one god murmured, admiration tinged with envy. "While we trembled, he descended alone," sighed another. Some muttered softly, "Who will now dare to doubt Indra?" Shouts rose high, yet within each god stirred a strange feeling, gladness at deliverance, and a prick of shame knowing the victory belonged to Indra alone. Then he spoke again. "You all want to know why I have called you here today?" All eyes turned towards Brahma, all ears were tuned to catch his words. "To tell you who the best among you is." The gods were taken aback. "Best? How can there be a best among gods? We're all different. We all have our own strengths. We cannot compare our strengths. We can compare our strengths only with ourselves. We all have our own fields, our own duties. You cannot compare one god to another," said Marisi. Brahma smiled. "Have you misunderstood my words, Marisi? I did not say the best among you gods is the strongest or the most valiant. That is not what I mean by best. What I mean by best is the one who does not run away from danger, the one who does not run away from a challenge, the one who faces the challenge. That is the best. That is the one whom I call the best." The gods looked down at their feet, remembering the day when a lone figure stood against the whole army of demons, defending the gods, defending the earth, defending all of us. And Marisi understood who Brahma was talking about. It was not strength that made Indra the best among the gods. It was his bravery, his valor, his willingness to face the toughest challenge alone. That was what made him the best. Yes, said Agni, Indra is the best among us. His strength may not be the greatest, his speed may not be the fastest, his beauty may not be the best, but his heart is the bravest. The gods nodded their heads in agreement. It was true. There was no god who could have done what Indra did. And Brahma continued, therefore the title of the best among the gods belongs to Indra. From today onwards, he shall be known as the supreme god, the leader of all the gods. Loud cheers echoed in the assembly of gods. Hail, Indra, the supreme god, they shouted. Some gods rushed towards Indra, embracing him, congratulating him. Others flew away to spread the news to all the worlds, and the whole universe reverberated with the news. Hail, Indra, the supreme god. In the celestial city of Amravati, the gods celebrated for days. They feasted, they caroused, they danced. The celestial nymphs sang songs in praise of Indra. The celestial musicians played music in praise of Indra. But in the midst of all the revelry, in the midst of all the celebration, Marici sat alone. He too was sad for himself, sad for the fact that he did not possess the greatest quality of all. The quality that had made Indra the supreme god. So Marici went to Brahma, fell at his feet and asked, "Oh, Brahma, please tell me what quality you saw in Indra that made him the supreme god. I am eager to learn that quality, O Brahma." Brahma smiled and said, "Marici, that quality is called courage." "Courage?" asked Marici. "Yes, courage. The power to face danger, the power to face a challenge, the power to stand up against oppression, stand up against injustice, to stand up for truth. That is courage. And courage, my son, is something that cannot be taught. It comes to you when you need it the most. It comes to you when you face the toughest challenge. It comes to you when you stand up for what you believe in. You cannot learn courage. You cannot seek courage. Courage finds you." Marici pondered over Brahma's words. Courage finds you. Yes, that was true. When he saw the demons attacking the gods, when he saw the demons killing the gods, when he saw the demons chasing him and the other gods like scared rabbits, that was when his courage had awakened. If I had not been so frightened, if I had not been so afraid of losing my life, I would not have dared to attack the demons, he said. That is courage, said Brahma. The courage to face danger, the courage to stand up against injustice, the courage to stand up for the truth. This, my son, is what makes a hero. This is what makes a god. Marici bowed his head in understanding. He knew that he had learned a valuable lesson that day. He knew that he would never forget it. The demons were defeated. The earth was safe. The gods were happy. And as Marici looked up at the sky, he saw a single tear escaping from behind Brahma's closed eyelids. Why was Brahma sad? Why was Brahma shedding tears? Marici wondered. Perhaps he, too, was sad for the loss of his son, thought Marici sadly. It was then that Brahma opened his eyes and looked at Marici. I have one more task for you, he said. What is it, father? asked Marici. Go to the Himalayas. There lives a sage named Doduchi Muni. He has a son. His name is Brihaspati. Bring him here. I want him to be the guru of the gods. Marici bowed his head and disappeared in a flash of light. A few moments later, he was standing in front of Doduchi Muni with folded hands. Doduchi Muni, he said, Brahma has sent me to take you to Amravati. You are to be the new guru of the gods. Doduchi Muni was taken aback. I am an ordinary sage. I know no higher duties, said Doduchi Muni. You are indeed a great sage, said Marici, and the gods need your wisdom, your knowledge. They need you to be their guru. But I cannot, said Doduchi Muni. My son is so young, he knows so little, I am afraid I cannot send him. Then Marici smiled. That is why I have come with folded hands to request you, O sage, go with me to Amravati. Let Brahma decide whether your son is fit to be the guru of the gods or not. And as the two sages walked towards the celestial city, Marici realized that his journey had just begun. So the demon was slain, the rains returned, and with them the lush greenery of rice paddies and fields carpeted in flowers. The people poured out their joy, hailing Indra as their king. They brought him offerings, performed rituals, and sang his praises. They said, O mighty one, your power knows no bounds. You have saved us from drought and death. You are our refuge, our protector, our king." But amidst all these praises, Indra was not proud. He lifted the Soma, took a quiet sip, and laughed. And his laughter echoed with a sound that startled the people. It was as if a clap of thunder had suddenly burst in a cloudless sky. Then Indra spoke, and his voice was like the rumble of distant thunder. "I only drank on behalf of mankind's prayers." His words were few, but they resonated with the people, echoing in their hearts long after the celebration ended. For many days, Indra stayed in the city. He watched as the people rebuilt their lives, their children playing in the fields once more, their smiles returning. He saw the farmers sowing seeds and planting trees, their faces etched with hope and gratitude. He witnessed the return of the migrating birds, their songs filling the sky, and the animals coming back to the forest, their eyes reflecting the rejuvenating waters. As the days passed, it was time for Indra to return to his celestial abode. The people gathered once more, their eyes filled with a mixture of joy and sorrow. Joy that their king was returning, and sorrow that their protector was leaving. Indra, king of gods, addressed his people one last time. He said, "Do not weep, for I am not going far. I am only returning to my home among the clouds. Remember, I am always near you, watching over you, ready to help you whenever you need me. Call upon my name with a pure heart, and I will come to your aid. Do not let this separation trouble you. We are all part of the same existence. You are the earth, and I am the sky. We are connected by the very essence of being. I am in your dreams. I am in your aspirations. I am in the sunlight that warms your skin, and the moonlight that bathes you in silver light. I am in the flowing rivers and the gentle breeze. I am in the thunder that roars and the lightning that flashes. I am in the cycles of nature, the changing seasons, the blooming flowers, and the ripening fruits. I am in the laughter of children and the love of families. I am in the courage of the brave and the wisdom of the sage. I am in every breath you take and every step you make. I am in the past, I am in the present, and I shall be in the future. As long as there is righteousness on earth, as long as there is devotion in your hearts, I shall be with you, protecting you, guiding you, loving you." His words hung in the air like the sweet melody of a celestial lute, touching the hearts of all who heard him. And then, as suddenly as he had appeared, Indra, king of gods, ascended to his celestial abode, leaving behind a profound silence that echoed his parting message. The people stood there for a long time, his words resonating within them, a reminder of the divine presence that watches over them, a solace that uplifts their spirits. And as they slowly dispersed, each one carried a piece of Indra's wisdom in their heart, a beacon to guide them through the complexities of life. From that day forward, whenever the people faced adversity, they remembered Indra's words. They looked to the sky with faith, knowing that he was there, and their spirits soared with the realization that they were never truly alone. For they had the strength of their unity, the guidance of Indra's wisdom, and the unwavering belief in the goodness of their hearts. In the shadow of the mountain, where the river song and silence meet, there lived a young boy named Onish. Every evening when the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Onish would sit by the riverbank, watching the play of light and shadow. He loved listening to the gurgling water, the chirping crickets, and the distant laughter of villagers returning home from their day's work. But Onish's favorite time was during the monsoon season, when the clouds gathered, dark and heavy, and the first drops of rain fell, drumming on the parched earth. He would run through the puddles, his laughter echoing through the valley, his heart soaring with the joy of living. One particularly rainy afternoon, as Onish sat under his favorite banyan tree, lost in his own world, he heard a strange sound. It was a deep, resonant thump, like the heartbeat of the earth. At first, he thought it was thunder. But then another thump echoed through the valley, and then another, like the measured steps of some giant. Curiosity piqued, Onish decided to follow the sound. He jumped over rocks and splashed through streams, his eyes scanning the surroundings. As he ventured deeper into the forest, the sound grew louder, more intense, as if the very trees were beating in unison. Suddenly he emerged into a clearing and gasped. Before him lay a sight that took his breath away. In the center of the clearing was a massive rock monolith. its surface covered in intricate carvings. And around it in a circle, men and women were engaged in a mesmerizing dance. Their movements were fluid, graceful, yet powerful, like the ebb and flow of the tides. And as they danced, they beat drums, creating the rhythmic thumps that had led Anish to this hidden clearing. He stood mesmerized, not wanting to break the spell, and watched them dance until the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky and darkness enveloped the clearing. The dancers paid no heed to the approaching night. They moved on, driven by an ancient rhythm that pulsed within their veins. As the night deepened, Anish realized he wasn't alone in his fascination. From behind the trees, he saw pairs of eyes watching the dance, belonging to animals that had come to witness this nightly spectacle. There were deer with wide, curious eyes, peacocks with their iridescent feathers shimmering in the firelight, and even a lone elephant, its tusks gleaming like polished ivory. And as the dance reached its crescendo, Anish felt a strange sensation wash over him, a feeling of unity, of oneness with the dancers, with the animals, and with the earth itself. It was as if the boundaries of his individual self were dissolving, leaving him open and receptive to the energies around him. The fire crackled merrily, casting flickering shadows on the surrounding trees. The night was filled with music and merriment as people sang and danced under the starlit sky. A group of women dressed in colorful saris swayed gracefully, their movements mirroring the flowing lines of the river song in silence. Their voices rose and fell, weaving tales of love and longing. A few men sat on a nearby rock, their faces illuminated by the firelight. They played traditional instruments, their melodies echoing the rhythms of the drums. The deep, resonant notes blended seamlessly, creating an enchanting symphony that stirred the soul. Anish sat cross-legged on the ground, his eyes shining with wonder. He watched as the dancers moved with effortless grace, their bodies telling stories without words. Their steps were precise, their postures elegant, and their expressions captivating. Suddenly, a young girl with flowers in her hair approached Anish. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, and she gestured towards the dance with an encouraging smile. Anish hesitated for a moment, self-consciousness battling with his desire to join them. But then he took a deep breath, stood up, and walked towards the center of the clearing. Yes. He joined the circle, the dancers welcomed him with open arms. The music swelled, the drums beat faster, and Anish found himself swept up in the energy of the dance. Moved with the others, his body responding instinctively to the rhythm. For a while there was no thought of anything else, only the dance, the music, and the shared joy of being part of something bigger than himself. The night wore on, and the dance continued. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, the dancers began to slow down. The music softened, and the energy in the clearing shifted. The group stood in a circle, their faces turned towards Anish. The girl with the flowers in her hair stepped forward and extended a hand. "Will you dance with me?" she asked, her voice filled with warmth. Anish, still slightly dazed from the night's revelry, took her hand and together they moved to the center. As the sun peeked over the mountains, bathing the clearing in golden light, Anish and the girl danced. Their steps were lighter, their movements more graceful. It was a farewell dance, a celebration of the night's journey, and a promise to return. When the sun was high in the sky, it was time for Anish to leave. He thanked the dancers for the unforgettable night and promised to keep their secret. As he walked back through the forest, the sounds of the dance still echoing in his ears, he couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. He missed the camaraderie, the music, and the magic of the night. But as he emerged from the trees and saw the familiar sights and sounds of his village, he knew he had gained something precious. The experience had awakened something within him, a passion for dance and a deep connection to his cultural heritage. From that day on, Anish's life was forever changed. He continued to visit the clearing every night, joining the dancers and losing himself in the rhythm. The dance became his solace, his joy, and his purpose. One evening, as Anish sat by the riverbank watching the sunset, his father joined him. The old man had a twinkle in his eye and a knowing smile on his lips. Anish, sensing his father's thoughts, turned to him and asked, "Did you too dance in the clearing?" His father nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "We all do, my son, when we hear the drums calling." Anish looked at his father, puzzled. "But how will I know when the drums are calling?" he asked. His father turned to him, his eyes filled with love and understanding. "You already do, Anish," he said softly. "You just don't remember." His words echoed in Anish's mind long after he had gone to sleep. The next day, as Anish walked through the village, he noticed a group of children gathered around a drum. Their eyes were shining with excitement, and their laughter filled the air. On impulse, Anish joined them. The moment his fingers touched the drumhead, a jolt of recognition ran through him. It was as if a dormant part of his soul had been awakened. He started to play, and as the rhythm filled the air, he felt a smile spread across his face. The children cheered and clapped, their joy echoing his own. In that moment, Anish knew he had found his calling. He would carry the legacy of the drums and the dance, sharing its magic with everyone he met. As the years passed, Anish became known throughout the land for his drumming skills and his passion for dance. People traveled from far and wide to witness the nightly spectacle in the clearing, and Anish's name was whispered in awe and admiration. Through it all, Anish remained humble, knowing that it was the ancient spirits of the forest who had chosen him to be their vessel. And every night, as the drums called and the dancers twirled beneath the starry sky, Anish's heart soared with gratitude and joy. He had found his true self in the dance, and in doing so, had discovered the eternal magic that lay hidden in the heart of the forest. That night, as Anish sat by the river watching the fireflies dance, a small figure approached him. It was his son Arnav, his eyes shining with curiosity. "Father, what are those strange lights?" he asked, pointing to the sky. Anish looked up and smiled. "Those, my son, are the fallen stars," he said softly. "Where do they go?" Arnav asked, his eyes wide with wonder. "They go to dance in the clearing," Anish replied, his voice filled with warmth. "Would you like to see them, Arnav?" I asked, extending a hand. Arnav took his father's hand, and together they walked towards the forest. As the first drums echoed in the distance, a deep sense of fulfillment washed over Anish. The legacy would continue, and he knew that the spirit of the dance would guide his son just as it had guided him. Before we begin, please like this video for more such insightful mythological stories. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Once upon a time, long before the dawn of history, when men fought with weapons made of stone, there lived a great king named Muchukunda. Muchukunda ruled over a vast empire that stretched as far as the sun could travel in a day. But despite his wealth and power, the king was haunted by nightmares. Every night, he saw terrible visions of darkness swallowing the world, of demons feasting on the souls of men, and each morning he woke up drenched in cold sweat, his heart pounding like a drum. These visions troubled him so much that he couldn't rule effectively, couldn't even sleep peacefully. So he decided to do whatever it took to end his nightmares. Now the king heard that there was an ancient sage named Brihaspati who lived deep in the forests. He was said to be very learned in the scriptures, and most importantly, he knew how to banish evil dreams. So Mushkandu assembled a large retinue and set out to find the sage. After many days of arduous journey, when they were about to lose all hope, they saw an ashram nestled at the foot of a mountain. Their old Brahmaspati was practicing austerities. The king prostrated himself before the sage and poured out his heart, explaining all his troubles. When Brahmaspati heard this, he looked at the troubled king with eyes full of wisdom and said, "O king, your nightmares are not just dreams. They are omens from the gods, signs that our world is in great peril." Now, Muchukunda asked, "What kind of danger? What can I do to save my people?" Then Brihaspati pointed his staff towards the sky and said, "There is a demon named Andras. He resides in the nether regions, and he has been causing chaos in the world through his evil deeds. His atrocities have reached such a level that the gods have abandoned their duties. They are so discouraged that they have hidden themselves on high, hard-to-reach places, leaving the earth defenseless against the demons." He continued, "To free humanity from this great suffering, the gods have sent me to tell you that you have the responsibility to slay the demon Anders and restore order to the universe." King Muchukunda felt a surge of determination. He bowed to Brahmaspati and said, "I shall slay that demon, even if I have to traverse the 7 seas to reach him, even if I have to fight through the hells themselves." Thus, under the guidance of Brahmaspati, preparations began for the great war. For months, the king trained his body and soul, honing his skills, strengthening his resolve. Finally, the day arrived when he was ready to face the demon. Early in the morning, he left his kingdom. traveling south until he reached a magnificent chariot made of gold. This was no ordinary chariot, it was celestial, capable of traversing the three worlds. Seated on the chariot was a beautiful woman with skin as dark as a cloudless night and eyes that shone like stars. She was none other than the goddess Kali, personification of time itself, always present yet never noticed. Realizing who she was, Muchokuntha prostrated himself before her. Kali raised him up and said, "I am here to accompany you on your quest. But know this, I am fickle, and my favor is hard to gain. You must prove yourself worthy if you wish to retain my support." With these words, she helped him mount the chariot, and they ascended to heaven. Andras resided in a fortress in the nether regions, a place where the sun's rays never fell, and where death itself feared to tread. As they approached the fortress, Kali warned the king, "The demon Anders will try to scare you with illusions. Do not give in to them. Remember, I am with you. Only I know the real danger. Trust me and follow my instructions." Hearing her words, Muchukunda gained renewed courage. Then suddenly, strange things began to happen. Specters from Muchukunda's past appeared before him, some begging for help, some cursing him, and some simply mocking him. He saw his dead parents, their faces contorted with grief, accusing him of bringing ruin to his kingdom. He saw his wife and children, their faces pale with fear, urging him to turn back. But the king stood firm. He closed his eyes, shut out the terrifying images, and focused on Kali. She nodded slightly, signaling him to continue. As they ventured deeper into the fortress, the air grew colder. The ground beneath them turned hard like stone. Muchukunda felt his limbs growing heavy, his steps faltering. Just when he thought he couldn't go on, Kali whispered, "This is the final test. Show me your true form, O king. Show me the determination that burns within you." At that moment, Muchukunda realized what it meant to be a true leader. He straightened his back, lifted his head, and strode forward with newfound strength. Kali smiled, pleased with his resolve, and disappeared into his chest, becoming one with him. In that instant, the entire fortress rumbled. The ground split open, and from the depths arose a colossal demon. His skin was the color of dried blood. His eyes burned like molten gold. His teeth were sharp fangs, and his breath reeked of sulfur and death. Andras had finally manifested in his true form. Now the two titans clashed in battle. Each of their attacks shook the very foundations of the nether regions. The demon roared in anger, his voice echoing through the ages. The king fought with the ferocity of a lion, his every move a testament to his training and resolve. The battle raged for what seemed like eons, neither warrior giving an inch. Then suddenly Andras changed tactics. He taunted the king, saying, "Give up, mortal. You cannot defeat me. Even the gods have abandoned you. I am the embodiment of chaos. I am the master of illusions. I am eternal. You are but a speck of dust. Surrender, and I shall grant you a swift death." Muchukunda paused, and for a moment doubt crept into his heart. Was he truly capable of defeating this monster? Hadn't the gods forsaken him? But then he remembered the faces of his people, the trust they had placed in him, the lives that depended on his victory. He shook off the demon's illusions and attacked with renewed vigor. With a mighty roar, the king struck a fatal blow, piercing the demon's heart. Andras screamed in agony, collapsing into a heap. His body dissolved, and from his pores emerged countless demons and goblins, screeching as they fled. The fortress trembled one last time and crumbled into dust. The victory belonged to Muchukunda. From that day, the king became a legend. People recounted his bravery around campfires, and his statue was erected in the town square, a symbol of hope and resilience. He had not only saved his people, but all of humanity from the clutches of evil. And though he might have been mortal, his spirit was immortalized in the hearts of his people. But let us not forget that this victory was not only a god's triumph, it was the triumph of light over darkness, hope over despair, life over extinction. From that day, Indra became a symbol. When rain falls, people believe it is his gift. When thunder speaks, they believe it is his laughter, minding the world that is still guarded. Indra is not merely the god who drinks Soma and slays a dragon. He is the song of victory that echoes forever in the human heart. This is a story about winning a battle, But when we tell stories around a campfire, it's usually about more than just battles, is it not? It's about everything else that happened afterwards. So let me tell you this story again. It is the story of how Indra slew the serpent Vritra, except that this story has two parts. One is the battle itself. And that part, you may have heard, is glorious and short. The other part is what remained. For when the battle ended, the world looked up at the sky and saw the clouds parting. It was as if heaven itself had been sealed shut. For 7 nights the sun did not rise. There was no light, no hope, no promise of dawn. Then came the sound of rolling thunder, and the first drops of rain, then a deluge. Water flowed back into the rivers, burst through the dams, and filled the ocean. Plants unfurled new leaves, birds sang from the trees, and animals shook off the dust and basked in the rains. Crops grew overnight, fat and tall, and men and cattle alike raised their heads and drank deeply from the water, quenching a thirst of days and nights. Men walked out of their homes and stood beneath the open sky, some with joined hands, some with raised faces, and some in tears of joy. This was no longer a drought. This was a baptism. And when the 7th day broke, the sun rose over a washed world. The sky wore a smile, the earth smelled sweet, the air vibrated with the hum of 1,000,000 winged creatures. All life stirred under a canopy of dripping green. That is the second part of the story, the aftermath. Let us start at the beginning. Once upon a time, there lived a man named Vritra. He was not a cruel man, nor did he wish to harm anyone. He was also not a very wise man, nor did he know magic or sorcery. What he knew best was his land. He knew where the streams trickled underground, where plants tasted sweet, and where the mountains held precious minerals. He also knew the habits of the wild creatures, where they grazed and where they slept. And so Vritra lived in harmony with the land and earned a living trading in precious things. But sometimes, and you have probably guessed it by now, sometimes a king comes across a simpleton like him and decides to take his land away. So that is exactly what happened. One day the king arrived with soldiers and drove Vritra out of his home. Vritra was bewildered. Why was he being driven out? How could he claim the land when he always borrowed it from the earth? But the king and his soldiers were deaf to these questions. They simply drove him out and took possession of the land. A poor man like Vritra could do little. He wandered out into the world hungry and thirsty, with nothing but his wits and a bow and arrow for company. Days passed, and Vritra came across a mountain. He climbed it, sat down on a peak, and began to weep. Now we all know that the gods dwell in the mountains. In fact, they often make their home at the highest peaks. So it happened that the god Indra noticed Vritra. To his eyes, the man seemed small, lost and alone against the immensity of the sky. The sight moved him, so he decided to speak to Vritra. "Why do you weep?" he asked. And Vritra lifted his head and told the god everything, how he had been driven out of his home, how he was hungry and thirsty, and finally, how he was tired of running. Indra listened patiently, and when Vritra was done, he asked him, "What would you do if I gave you your land back?" At that, Vritra laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. "I would do what you are doing right now, my lord, sitting here on top of the mountain." Indra was confused. "But why?" he asked, and Vritra explained. "Because this is the only place where I can live," he said. "If I go below, I will only be chased away again. If I go higher, I will only annoy the gods." Indra stayed silent for a while. He thought of the plight of the people, how the fields were drying up, the rivers were shrinking, and how soon the land would become barren and turn its back on them. He also saw the sadness in Vritra, the hopelessness in his eyes, and he thought about the story behind that. Finally, Indra spoke. "Will you help me?" he asked. Vritra shook his head. "Misunderstand," he said. "I am not blessed, my lord. I am a burden. A king will chase me, a tree will bend under my weight, and a mountain will crumble under my feet. How can I help you?" Indra smiled. "By merely agreeing to help me," he said, "you have already begun to help yourself. Come with me." The two of them left the mountain and headed towards the city. Along the way, they met a sage. "Come," said Indra, "let us ask him." The sage was meditating under a tree, and when he opened his eyes, he saw the god himself standing before him. "What can I do for you, my lord?" I asked. Can you drive away the drought from this land? Asked Indra, and the sage shook his head. That is beyond my powers, he said. Only the god of rains can do that. Indra nodded, turned towards Vritra, and asked, Do you know where he lives? Vritra pointed towards a cave in the distance. He lives in that cave, he said, but he does not answer calls easily. He is stubborn and proud, and you must earn his favor. Indra nodded, thanked the sage, and set off towards the cave. Now, we all know who this cave belonged to, but let us forget his name for a moment. Let's call him the Lord of Rains. He was sitting cross-legged inside his cave, lost in meditation. Suddenly a gentle breeze played across his face, and when he opened his eyes, he found Indra standing before him. Greetings, O God, he said. Why have you come? Indra explained to him the plight of the people, how the fields were drying up, and how the land would soon become barren. The Lord of Rains frowned. He had sensed the drought, but he had deliberately ignored it. It was not his duty to water the fields, he had argued, nor was it his job to send rains every year. If the humans wanted rains, they would have to convince him. But they had not bothered to do that. In fact, they had forgotten that he even existed. So, he had decided to punish them. Indra understood his point, and so he did not try to argue. Instead, he placed a hand on the shoulder of the Lord of Rains, and invited him to see the land for himself. The Lord of Rains agreed, and the two of them left the cave. When he saw the shriveled land, the Lord of Rains frowned even deeper. He turned to Indra and asked, How long has this been going on? 7 days, replied Indra. Then I will send 7 days of rains, said the Lord of Rains. But if I do that, you will have to keep me company for 7 nights. Indra had expected this answer. As you wish, he said, and he kept the Lord of Rains company that night, and the next, until 7 days of heavy rains lashed the earth. When it was over, the world looked up at the sky and saw the clouds parting. It was as if heaven itself had been sealed shut. For 7 nights, the sun did not rise. There was no light, no hope, no promise of dawn.
Oh.
Then came the sound of rolling thunder and the first drops of rain, then a deluge. Water flowed back into the rivers, burst through the dams, and filled the ocean. Plants unfurled new leaves, birds sang from the trees, and animals shook off the dust and basked in the rains. Crops grew overnight, fat and tall. And men and cattle alike raised their heads and drank deeply from the water, quenching a thirst of days and nights. Men walked out of their homes and stood beneath the open sky, some with joined hands, some with raised faces, and some in tears of joy. This was no longer a drought. This was a baptism. When the 7th day broke, the sun rose over a washed world. The sky wore a smile. The earth smelled sweet.
Oh.
The air vibrated with the hum of 1,000,000 winged creatures. All life stirred under a canopy of dripping green. From that day, the name Indra resounded in every rite. People offered Soma to the heavens, not merely as a gift to a god, but as a remembrance. We are grateful for you, returned the rivers, the rains, and life itself. The hymns of the Rigveda were sung aloud. Each verse recalled the deed. Indra was not only the bearer of the Vajra, he was the opener of the way of life. In any village, in any monsoon, one would hear, the rain is the sign that Indra is still there. Indra was honored, not by mortals alone. Even the gods inclined their heads. From one once called reckless, he became the greatest warrior among the divine. That is how the victory over Vritra became a legend. You see, a battle is never really won by one man alone. It takes an entire kingdom to win a war, doesn't it? And that victory ripples outwards, touching everyone and everything. And that is the true measure of a victory. And what did he find? Found in the first chakra of the body, Muladhara, which is at the root of the spine. The Kundalini energy coiled around a lotus with 6 petals, like the coils of a snake, asleep. And he placed his first yoni at the root of the spine. And when he did that, the first chakra blossomed into action. The 6 petals opened up and he began to ascend. He ascended through the Svadhisthana chakra, the Manipura chakra, the Anahata chakra. Each time he placed his yoni in the chakras, they blossomed, awakened. He ascended through the Vishuddha chakra, through the Ajna chakra, till he reached the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus. Now we come to a very interesting part of this story. Once he reached the topmost chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus, he saw another yogi already seated there. Who was this yogi? This yogi was none other than Buddha, the one who had attained enlightenment 800 years before, and he was sitting in Padmasana. Padmasana is the position of ultimate meditative bliss. It is also called the Yoga of the Great Seal. You are probably familiar with the famous image of Gautam Buddha, where he is depicted in deep meditation, sealing his meditative bliss, his enlightenment with his hands in a particular gesture. That is called the Yoga of the Great Seal, or Padmasana. He was seated there, already enlightened. And when Adi Yogi placed his yoni at the topmost chakra, Buddha turned to him and said, "Why have you come here? You have disturbed my meditation." And Adi Yogi replied, "I am on a mission. I want to place my yoni here and then return back and transmit the yoga practice to my disciples." Now Buddha told him, "You cannot do that because once you leave, this energy will cease to flow. This energy has to flow uninterruptedly. So if you go back, everything will be lost. You must sit here and meditate." But Adi Yogi insisted, "I have come this far. I must transmit this yoga to my disciples. I must share this experience with them." So there was a little argument between Buddha and Adi Yogi. What did Buddha say to him? He said, "This energy will always be here. It is eternal. It is beyond birth and death. Go ahead, share this with your disciples. But remember this, whatever you teach them, they will understand according to their capacity. They may or may not grasp the full import of what you share. It is the law of nature. There is nothing you can do about it." With these words of wisdom from Buddha, Adilaji returned back. He came down through all the chakras, placing his yoni at each chakra. At each chakra, he placed a deity. Deities are nothing but symbols of energies. Symbols are needed because our understanding is limited. We need symbols to understand abstract qualities. And the 7 chakras are the 7 centers of energy in our subtle body. They govern different functions in our body, in our mind, and in our behavior. And the 7 deities placed there are the 7 presiding energies. They represent certain qualities. When Adiluji came down, he transmitted these experiences, these teachings to his disciples. Among them were 7 chief disciples, and he gave them the mantra, the mudra, the bandha, the asana, the pranayama, the yantra, and the mandala for each of the chakras. Thus, the Kriya Yoga system got completed. Now, what exactly is Kriya Yoga? What's the meaning of this word? Let's break it down. The word yoga means union. Yoga is the union of 2 or more things. What are these 2 things? These are the individual consciousness and the universal consciousness. When there is a union between the finite and the infinite, between the limited and the limitless, then you attain enlightenment. You become one with the whole. But how can this union take place? For this, you need a bridge. And what is that bridge? That bridge is the energy body. Kriya means action. So Kriya Yoga is the action of energy. It is the action of the energy body. When the energy body is activated, when the dormant energy is awakened and directed towards the head, then Kriya Yoga takes place. Now, what is the importance of this energy body? Why should we awaken it? If you look at the history of humanity, you will find that all spiritual seekers have always been looking for this energy body. Jesus called it the inner Christ. He said, "The kingdom of God is within you. This kingdom is within you." All prophets have talked about this. They have given methods to awaken it. In the past, people had to search for long, long years to find out this path. But now, luckily, we have all these techniques, these simple yet powerful techniques of Kriya Yoga to awaken this energy body. It is like having a map. Earlier, people used to wander in the forest without a map. They would struggle for days, even die in the process. But if you have a map, then you know where you are going and you can reach your destination easily. Similarly, earlier, people had to struggle through many lives to awaken the energy body. But Kriya Yoga gives us a shortcut. What is the result of Kriya Yoga? As you have seen in the story of Adi Yogi, when the energy body is awakened and the energy flows upwards, all the chakras blossom. The chakras which were closed, the petals which were folded, get unrolled and start functioning. What happens when a closed chakra opens? A certain quality blossoms in your personality. What happens when all the chakras are open? Your personality is complete. There is nothing that can stop your progress, and there is free flow of energy. You become full of vitality. Some people have lots of energy in the lower chakras, but it doesn't flow upward because the chakras are blocked. So they become frustrated, or full of desires, but their higher aspirations are not fulfilled. But when the energy flows upward, when the chakras are open, then all our dormant potentials begin to manifest. Today we are going to dive into the first chakra and see how to make it function properly. Most people don't know how to use their first chakra. They keep pushing their life force downward. That's why they live in constant fear. They are always struggling. They don't know how to enjoy life, because they don't know how to control their energy. The first chakra, Muladhara, is situated at the root of the spine. It relates to our survival instincts, our security, our stability. It is the foundation upon which we stand. If this foundation is weak, then the whole structure will collapse. If we lose control over the first chakra, then we become slaves to our senses. The 5 elements, the 5 forces of nature, earth, water, fire, air, and space, they become our masters. We lose our freedom, we become addicted to various substances, and we lose our health. And the most important thing is that we lose our connection with the divine. So the first step is to bring awareness to our basic survival needs and to meet those needs properly. Then move upwards. Don't keep your awareness stuck in the first chakra. That will lead to depression. Move upwards with awareness. Don't get attached to anything. Be detached. See how the river moves. That is connected to the ocean. It gets its life from the ocean, but it keeps moving. Don't block the river. Let it flow. This is the first lesson in Kriya Yoga. Don't cling to anything, even your good qualities. Don't think you are humble, you are kind, you are loving. No, you never know. Just remain detached and let the energy flow. Keep your awareness at the topmost chakra and watch how the river of life flows and becomes one with the ocean. So we see that Kriya Yoga is actually the science of living fully, totally present in the now. So it is not some dry, abstract teaching. It is actually a way of life. It is the path of self-discovery. It is the path of enlightenment. So let us follow this path with dedication and devotion. And then it happened. After that day, there was a change in the world. There was something in the air, something in the eyes of people, a newfound confidence, a belief that life would go on, that they would survive. The elderly looked at the sky with tears in their eyes. Children laughed under the rain. Farmers cast seed upon the wet fields, confident that there would be a harvest. Firelight by the river shone in the hopeful eyes of a mother cradling her child. They were no longer afraid of the dark. Their guardian had come back. He had shown them that he cared. He would step forth and help them when all doors are shut. But how did this happen? What was it that changed everything? Let us go back a few days. For 6 long weeks, darkness had fallen on the land. The sun did not seem to want to rise. The world was cold and lifeless. People were scared. Every night they prayed to their gods for mercy. But no prayers were answered. No one knew what would happen next. No. The shops were all empty. Most importantly, there was no sign of light. The king summoned his ministers and advisors and generals. He asked them, "What should we do? How do we get our lives back?" But they had no answers. They sat in silence, each lost in thought. Finally, the oldest advisor spoke up. "Your Majesty," he said, "we have done everything we could. Now we must leave the rest to God. If he wants to punish us, we are at his mercy." The king nodded grimly, but he too was secretly praying for a miracle. One day, a small group of brave soldiers set out to explore beyond the dark. It went far and wide, but there was no sign of life. All they saw were abandoned homes and empty streets. Then they came across an old farmer tending to his field. "Sir," asked one of the soldiers, "do you know where the light is? Have you seen any other survivors?" The farmer shook his head sadly. "But I've been alone for so long," he said. "I've forgotten what the light looks like. And as for other survivors, I haven't seen or heard of any." The soldier thanked him and continued their search. They went on for many days, but the only thing they found were more abandoned homes and empty streets. Finally, just when their hope was about to die, they saw something in the distance. At first it looked like a mirage, but as they got closer, they realized it was a village. And in the center of the village, they saw a magnificent palace made of pure gold. Overjoyed, they ran towards it, hoping to find the light and perhaps a king who could lead them out of the darkness. When they entered the palace, they found a vast hall filled with people from all walks of life. There were merchants and artisans, farmers and soldiers, young and old, men and women, all gathered together in prayer. In the center of the hall stood a magnificent statue of a warrior, his eyes closed in deep meditation. As the soldiers approached, the people turned to look at them, and the leader of the soldiers stepped forward and said, "We are from the neighboring kingdom. We have come to seek your help in finding the light. Can you help us, O great king?" The villagers looked at each other in dismay. "We, too, are looking for a king to lead us out of this darkness," said one of the elders, "but so far, no one has come to help us." Then the leader of the soldiers said, "We are willing to serve you, O great king. We will fight by your side and bring back the light." But the king only smiled sadly and said, "Thank you for your offer, but I am afraid it is too late. The darkness is here to stay." The soldiers were deeply disappointed, but they could not give up hope. So they decided to wait and see what would happen next. For many days, the soldiers stayed in the palace, learning about the villagers and their customs. They listened to their stories of bravery and sacrifice, and they, too, began to feel a sense of hope. Finally, after 6 long weeks, the king spoke to them again. "I have watched you all," he said, "and I have seen your courage and determination. I believe that you can help us end this darkness, but you cannot do it alone. You need the help of the people." The soldiers were confused, but the king explained, "We have all suffered greatly during this time, but we have also learned some very important lessons. We have learned the value of hard work and sacrifice. We have learned to appreciate the little things in life, and most importantly, we have learned to stand up for what we believe in," he continued. "Now I want you to go to the neighboring kingdoms and tell them that we are rising from the ashes. Tell them that we are no longer afraid of the dark and that we will fight for our freedom. Tell them that the time has come to put an end to this darkness." The soldiers were inspired by the king's words, and they set out on their mission. They traveled from kingdom to kingdom, spreading the message of hope and resistance. Wherever they went, they were welcomed with open arms, and soon a large army was assembled. Then came the day when the 2 armies met on the battlefield. The king led his army to victory, and the darkness was finally lifted. From that day on, the king was revered as a great leader, and his people lived happily ever after. Now let us go back to the present. After that day, there was a change in the world. There was something in the air, something in the eyes of people, a newfound confidence, a belief that life would go on, that they would survive. The elderly looked at the sky with tears in their eyes. Children laughed under the rain. Farmers cast seed upon the wet fields, confident that there would be a harvest. Firelight by the river shone in the hopeful eyes of a mother cradling her child. They were no longer afraid of the dark. Their guardian had come back. He had shown them that he cared. He would step forth and help them when all doors are shut. That faith was not only for those who lived in Vedic times. It was handed down from generation to generation like a torch. But why did it suddenly re-emerge in these people's hearts? Why did they no longer fear the dark? The answer lies in the story itself. When the darkness had fallen, people were scared. Every night they prayed to their gods for mercy, but no prayers were answered. Yet they didn't lose hope. They waited patiently for a miracle. This shows us that even in the darkest of times, we should never give up hope. We should keep faith in ourselves and in a higher power. When the king summoned his advisors, they told him to leave everything to God. They said if God wanted to punish them, they were at his mercy. This teaches us that we should always accept whatever happens with humility. We should surrender ourselves to a higher will and trust that everything happens for a reason. The soldiers who set out to find the light were not successful initially. They only found abandoned homes and empty streets. But they did not give up. They kept searching, and eventually they found the village and the Golden Palace. This tells us that we should never give up in our pursuit of knowledge and enlightenment. We must keep searching even when we encounter obstacles and setbacks. The people in the village were also suffering. They had been through a lot during the 6 weeks of darkness, and they were looking for a savior. But when the soldiers arrived, they did not welcome them with open arms. Instead, they told them that it was too late and that the darkness was here to stay. However, after 6 weeks, when the king spoke to them again, they listened and followed his advice. They stood up against the darkness and brought light back into their lives. This teaches us that we should always listen to wise counsel, should be open to new ideas and perspectives, and not be afraid to take risks. By following these lessons, we can overcome any challenge that comes our way. We can bring light into our own lives and into the lives of others. So let us remember the story of the people who survived the darkness, and let us take inspiration from their courage and determination. Let us keep the faith that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. Let's start with an ancient story from India. Once upon a time, the sky was covered with clouds, the rain was blocked, and the earth suffered a severe drought. The Devas, or the gods, were worried. They were afraid that if the rains did not start soon, people would die. So they requested their king, Indra, to save the day. Now Indra was a warrior. He had a big army. His weapon of choice was his thunderbolt, which he hurled at the clouds. But alas, those clouds were very stubborn. They didn't go away. In fact, they got angrier, and they made the drought even worse. The gods lost hope. Only one sage remained. He told the gods, "You need a special plant called the Soma. You have to grind it and drink its juice. That will give you a wonderful strength, and your weapons will become powerful." So Indra went to get the Soma plant. A beautiful woman guarded it. She challenged Indra. "If you can defeat me, you can take the plant." And Indra defeated her and took the plant. He returned, and the gods ground it and drank its juice. But they still couldn't defeat the clouds. It seemed like all was lost. Then the sage came again and said, "You are making a big mistake. You have to enter into the dragon's belly and kill the demon Vritra. Only then will the rain start." By now, Indra was furious. The entire world was suffering, and here he was wasting his time playing games with this demoness. He took his thunderbolt and entered the dragon's mouth. Now when he entered inside, it was pitch black. It seemed like an endless tunnel. Suddenly he heard some voices. They were soft and sweet, like the tunes played on a flute. "O Deva, we are trapped in this dragon's belly. Please save us." Those were the voices of the rivers. Indra remembered what the sage had told him. He had 2 options before him. Either he gave up and left, or he embraced the darkness and kept moving forward. Now he could either trust the strength that came from the Soma plant, or he could trust himself. What would he choose? As he moved ahead, the light from his armor began to glow. As the light spread, he saw the rivers imprisoned inside. They were thirsty, they were crying. They looked at Indra and said, "We are dying of thirst. Please, Deva, save us." One thought crossed Indra's mind. Why were they crying? Were they really thirsty? Or was it all an illusion? Was he being tricked? He decided to press on. He needed to get out of this darkness. Then he saw something strange. One river was flowing merrily. It was sparkling and shining, and it did not seem to care about anything. The other rivers noticed Indra looking at them and started pleading, "Deva, please save us." But the river that was flowing calmly said, "Why should he save you? You are lazy. You want him to carry you. No, no, Devas. We have to do it ourselves." She called out to the others, "Wake up, sisters. We have been asleep for too long. Now is the time to rise." All the rivers woke up. They rose and joined hands. Together they formed a mighty river, a huge torrent, and they flowed out of the dragon's mouth. The moment they touched the earth, they became rain. The clouds opened up, and the rain poured down. The parched earth drank the rain, and all was well again. From then on, Indra became more humble. He understood that real strength is not just physical, it is also mental and emotional. This story has a great teaching for all of us. True strength lies not only in muscle and might, but also in faith. When faced with challenges, one must trust not only in their physical prowess or external aids like the Soma plant, but also in their own inner strength and resilience. Had Indra trusted only in Soma and fallen into stupor, he would have failed. Had he relied only on brute force, Vritra could have endured forever. But he listened to the rivers. He found the weakness in the night, and he dared to strike the fatal blow. Think about it. Within each of us there is a Vritra that imprisons us. It may be fear, despair, or some old defeat. If we dare to listen, to look straight at it, and to strike at the heart of that darkness, we shall find our own liberation. So, my friends, never shy away from your problems. Don't ignore them or try to drown them in momentary pleasures. Face them head on. You have the strength within you to overcome any obstacle. You may not always see it, but it's always there. All you need to do is believe in yourself. So the next time you face a challenge, remember the story of Indra. Trust in your strength, look fear in the eye, and strike at the darkness. You'll find your liberation. And this is not the only story where facing darkness leads to liberation. Let's look at another one. In the Hindu epic Mahabharata, there is a character named Ashwathama. He was an invincible warrior. His mother was the goddess Parvati, and his father was a great sage. Ashwathama was born with a special boon. No weapon could harm him. He was practically immortal. Once, during the Kurukshetra war, Ashwathama was fighting Bhima. The Pandavas were losing badly. They were tired and demoralized. Even Bhima was exhausted. He needed some rest. Just then Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandava brothers, approached Bhima and said, "Bhima, we know you are tired. But think of all the suffering of the Pandavas. Our kingdom has been destroyed. People have been killed. Can you bear to see Draupadi, our wives, suffer so much?" Hearing this, Bhima regained his strength and continued fighting. He fought with renewed vigor and determination. Finally, he managed to overpower Ashwathama. As Bhima pinned Ashwathama to the ground, he could have easily killed him. But instead he asked a question. "Ashwathama, you have great powers. Tell me, what is the secret?" Ashwathama replied, "I possess a powerful weapon called Brahmasya. It can destroy everything in an instant. Can you show me that weapon?" asked Bhima. Ashwathama hesitated. He didn't want to reveal his secret, but he had no choice. So he closed his eyes and raised his hand. Suddenly, a bright light filled the battlefield. The light was so intense that everyone, including Bhima, had to shield their eyes. When the light faded away, Ashwathama was nowhere to be seen. Bhima opened his eyes and gasped in surprise. The entire army of the Kauravas had vanished. Even the great Ashwathama had disappeared. At that moment, Bhima realized the truth. Ashwathama had not been invincible. He had simply chosen not to be killed. Bhima understood that true strength lay not in brute force, but in the courage to face one's fears and the willingness to embrace the darkness within. So friends, the next time you face a challenge, remember the story of Bhima. Be brave enough to face your fears and don't be afraid to embrace the darkness within you. For it is in the darkness that you will find your true strength. So let us not shy away from our problems. Instead, let us face them head on and emerge stronger and wiser on the other side. And these stories teach us another important lesson. Sometimes, it is necessary to look into the darkness in order to bring light into our lives. They were at war for 33 days. You may have heard of it. The war between Devas and Danavas was one such war. But more specifically, it was the war between two warriors, the Devas and the Danavas, both of them sons of the same father. In the end, Indra, the Deva, killed his brother Vritra, the Danava, and drank his blood. I don't add, and that's when he received the name Indra, the Lord of Thunder. This is a story from ancient India. It's called the Satapatha Brahmana. Now this story has been interpreted in many ways. It's been turned into an epic poem, the Nalatruthra, by the poet Sriharsha. There's another version where the war goes on for 1,000 years. You can also read it as a metaphor for the struggle between good and evil, between light and darkness. I don't want to talk about all those interpretations today. I just want to talk about one particular detail. It's a small detail in the larger narrative, but I think it helps us understand something about ourselves. Listen to this. After the war, when everything was over, and this is what the text says. When the earth had drunk its fill of the waters brought forth by Indra's might, when all the quarters were filled with waters, when the rivers and the seas were filled with waters, then indeed he reflected, "What shall I do? For my heart was full of sorrow." Now you know why this happened. You all know why our hero feels sad. He has just killed his own brother. Can you imagine the kind of thoughts that must be going through his mind? How did he kill his brother? Why did he kill his brother? So many questions would be swirling around him, wouldn't they? And the answer is what we often fail to look for, especially when we are grieving. We often look for answers outside of ourselves. But the truth is this: the answer lies in the question itself. That is what he has discovered. That is why he's so sad. And what does he do? He goes to the forest and stays there for a while, hoping that time will heal his sadness, but it doesn't. Time cannot heal a broken heart, can it? Listen to what he does next. He takes a walk along the riverbank. Suddenly, he sees a beautiful woman sitting by the river. Her name was Shachi. She was the daughter of the king of the Gandharvas. Seeing her, he asks her to marry him. So now he wants to start a new life, move on. But Shachi refuses him. Why? Because she is already married? She is married to another Deva, the half-brother of Indra. His name was Pavana. So now, Indra comes back home, tells his counselor Brihaspati about this. And guess what he does? Goes to the forest again. Next day, he practices austerities. He performs yanas. He calls all the sages and rishis. They perform Vedic rituals. All the Devas come to see him, join him in his rituals. Everyone is worried. Why is their leader sad? What is troubling him? It's only after 21 days that he tells them, I am overcome with grief because I have slain my own brother. The other Devas, they console him. They say, look, you didn't do it intentionally. It was the will of your father. But Indra is not convinced. This is what he says. I know not what shall I do. I'm troubled with great anxiety. And the Devas say, then let the mighty one go to the abode of the Gandharvas and seek a wife from amongst the daughters of the Gandharvas. So once again, he goes to the forest. He practices austerities. Once again, all the Devas gather around him. They perform rituals to help him. This time they say, go to the Gandharvas, ask for a wife. You will find solace in her. Now do you see how important it is to seek help, to ask for help? Indra could have kept his grief bottled up. He could have tried to push it down. He could have pretended that he was okay, that nothing had happened. But instead, he did something much harder. He chose to share his grief. It's like that, isn't it? When we are grieving, we need our friends, our family, our loved ones. We need to talk about what happened, what we are feeling. Bottling up our emotions never works. Indra gets ready, takes all the Devas along with him, and goes to the Gandharva kingdom. He asks for Shachi's hand in marriage. But the Gandharvas refuse. Why? Because she is already married to Pavana. Remember him? She was married to his half-brother. And the Gandharvas say it would be wrong to take another wife when he is still alive. So what does Indra do? He goes to the forest once again. He performs severe austerities. And this time he doesn't even eat or drink. And the Devas are worried. Why isn't he taking care of himself? And after 33 days, guess what happens? He disappears. He vanishes into thin air. This is what the text says. On the 33rd day, as the sun approached the southernmost point of his path across the sky, he disappeared. And when the sun began its northward journey, behold, he reappeared in the sky in a flash of lightning. Do you see the brilliance of this story? Do you see what it's trying to tell us? No matter how hard we try, no matter how long we hide, the truth always comes out. It's like that, isn't it? Sometimes our actions, they catch up with us. Sometimes our deeds, they do come back to haunt us. And when that happens, what do? Some of us run away. Some of us try to hide. But the truth is, we cannot escape from ourselves. And what does Indra do? He runs away from the kingdom, from the people, from the duties that he is supposed to perform. But where can he go? Where can anyone go? The ancient texts tell us, when we run away from ourselves, we only find ourselves in the end. This is what happened to King Nala. He ran away from his duties. He ran away from his friends and family. He hid in a cave. And do you know what happened? Met his own shadow. This is what the ancient texts say. When Nala saw that, he knew that he could not escape from himself. That is why he decided to return. Do you know who else went into the forest and did penance? Prince Siddhartha Gautama. He left behind his kingdom, his palaces, his beautiful wife, and he went into the forest, sat under a tree and meditated until he found the truth. But here, listen carefully. What do we find in the forest? We find the self. In the forest, there's no one to impress. In the forest, there's no one to distract us. And that is why it is the perfect place to find ourselves. And that's what happened to Indra. He went into the forest, deep into meditation, and that's when he got the name Ind, the Lord of Thunder. Do you see the brilliance of this story? It's a story about returning home, about facing our problems, about facing ourselves. Yes, we can run away. Yes, we can hide. Yes, we can pretend that nothing happened, but the truth is, we must return home, face our problems, and only then can we find peace. That is the meaning of this story. That is the lesson that we must learn. If you think about it, we all have demons to slay, haven't we? We all have dragons to kill. In the end, Indra's victory over Vritra is the victory of humans over darkness. Whatever age we live in, there are droughts within the heart. There are dragons that swallow our trust. But remember this, Indra once stood up. So can we. And that is the meaning that remains after thunder grows quiet, after rain has fallen. The story does not end. It continues in the very rhythm of our lives. This is a story from the ancient past. But these stories continue to be relevant even today. And that is the beauty of these ancient texts. Even today, people sit together and share these stories. We tell these stories to children, to grandchildren. And each time we tell the story, we imbibe some of its values, some of its lessons. These stories become part of our culture. They become part of our tradition. They become part of our lives. And that is why these stories continue to survive. Thank you for listening. This is one from the series. If you want to watch the complete series, you can visit our website. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Namaskar, this hymn of praise, was composed by a sage named Durga Tamas to celebrate his guru, Bharadvaja. It talks about how Bharadvaja helped him attain higher knowledge, after he had failed many times. The story goes that once Bharadvaja was traveling from Kashi to Hastinapura. On the way, he halted at Gaya, and there he met this great sage, Dodichi. Dodichi requested Bharadvaja to stay back and help the local people. So Bharadvaja settled at Gaya and started living in a forest hermitage. But later, he left the ashram and disappeared. Years passed, and one day, Durga Tamas, who was practicing penance nearby, saw Bharadvaja sitting under a tree. He approached him and said, "You are my teacher. I know. You can teach me the Vedas, the Shastras, and the secrets of life. So please reveal your divine knowledge to me." Hearing this, Bharati said, "I have been observing you for a long time. You always feel sleepy while chanting the Vedas. You cannot control your mind. So how can I impart sacred knowledge to you?" To this, the disciple replied, "When a person surrenders unto his spiritual master, the master should impart knowledge without expecting anything in return. So please don't be angry with me. Just teach me the scriptures." Then Bharadvaja asked him, "Do you really want to study? If you do, then first bring me some water." Dirt Gather said, "Yes, I will bring you water." And he went to the nearby river. After taking a dip in the holy water, he brought water in a pot and placed it at the feet of Bharadvaja. Then his teacher raised the pot and drank some water and continued drinking until all the water was finished. This happened every day for 12 years. Bharadvaja would ask for water and Durga Tamas would bring it for him. Sometimes he would drink little, sometimes a lot. But every day, Durga Tamas faithfully served him. Now you may wonder why this continued for 12 years. What was the purpose? What did the disciple learn during this period? It's nothing directly, but he learned an important lesson about himself. He understood his weakness. He knew that he could not concentrate while studying. His mind was restless. He was impatient. He was moody. So these 12 years were not a waste. They were the years of self-discovery, self-correction, and transformation. After 12 years, when Durgatama brought the pot, Bharadvaja looked at him and said, "So you have realized your weakness, right? You know where you lack? So now I will start teaching you." And thus the guru imparted divine knowledge to his earnest and ever-ready disciple. This is an ancient story that we find in the sacred texts. But how relevant is it today? Why are we reminded of it? Because today most of us approach the path of spirituality with a similar attitude. We go to temples, we bow before the deities, we pray to them, we even fast, and we make many other efforts. But the question is, have we ever analyzed our own minds? Have we ever tried to understand our weaknesses? Do we even know what they are? Or do we just blame external factors and circumstances for our failures? When we are young, we think old age is our enemy. When we are sick, we blame our body. And when we are poor, we crib about our poverty. But have we ever paused to reflect that our weakness might be the real cause of our problems? Could it be that our weakness is the biggest enemy in our lives? And could it also be that we are running away from facing it? That is why we cannot succeed in our goals. Today's story will help us to understand how to face our weaknesses. The ancient texts tell us that once upon a time, the demon Vritra used to live in the nether regions. He created havoc in the three worlds. The gods became afraid of him and took shelter of Lord Vishnu. Vishnu then incarnated as the god Indra and assembled the celestial army to defeat the demon Vritra. Now in most texts we read that Indra and Vritra fought a fierce battle. The battle between good and evil is not always physical. It also takes place within us, within our minds. We may not see an army or weapons, but the war is definitely on. We face our enemies within, and it is an inner battle that ultimately decides our destiny. And in this inner battle, the first thing we come across is fear. Fear is our first and greatest enemy. As soon as we hear about our weakness, fear grips us. Fear paralyzes us. We start doubting ourselves and lose confidence. At such times, the best thing we can do is surrender to the truth. Surrender means accepting reality. Surrender means confronting our fears and weaknesses honestly. Only then can we remove them. Then another quality that we need is patience. Patience is essential if we are to overcome our weakness. In the ancient texts, we read that ever since Indra struck down Vritra, the world has never sunk into such despair again. Rivers began to flow, rains returned, fields grew green, and children ran along the banks singing songs of the god who drank and slew the dragon. This means that after the destruction of the demon Vritra, the world experienced true prosperity. But how did this happen? Why didn't the world fall into chaos after the death of Vritra? You may think that killing the demon was enough, but it was more than that. It was the aftermath. Also very important, just like how we need to act in our lives. We must not only perform our duties, but also observe the results and draw conclusions from them. We must analyze our experiences and adjust ourselves accordingly. Only then can we ensure that we are marching in the right direction. This is the second lesson we learn from the story. The third lesson is courage. They say that ever since Indra struck down Vritra, the world has never sunk into such despair again. There is a very interesting paradox here. We all know that wine often makes mortals sway, their steps unsteady. But for Indra, Soma did not weaken it, became the very source of strength to face the darkness. And so it is with us. At times that which seems our weakness may become the handhold that helps us rise stronger. For example, our anger can turn into compassion, our grief into tolerance, our pride into humility, and our attachment into devotion. The secret lies in how we utilize these qualities. The same wine which intoxicates a person may give strength to a sage. The same river that fills a man with wrath may quench the thirst of a traveler. Everything depends on our perspective. How we choose to look at things determines whether they will be our strength or our weakness. So the real victory does not lie in running away from our weaknesses, it lies in facing them boldly. In fact, let us take a moment and think about the various weaknesses we have. We have our likes and dislikes. We have our comfort zones and limitations. We get tired, and we also lose interest. We also procrastinate. These are our weaknesses. But the question is, are we ready to accept them? Are we courageous enough to confront them? Are we patient enough to correct them? Most of us pretend that we do not have any weaknesses. We want to succeed in everything, but we are never willing to work hard. We want to enjoy all the fruits of success, but we are not ready to pay the price. Let us therefore learn from the ancient sages and rishis of India, who used to practice tapas and meditation for years together to transform their weaknesses into strengths. Let us also understand that it is our weaknesses that make us human. It is our weaknesses that connect us with the divine. Even gods have their weaknesses. They too experience fear, anxiety, and sadness. In fact, the texts tell us that the gods also undergo the 8 kinds of suffering that we humans go through. Therefore, let us not run away from our weaknesses. Let us learn to face them bravely and transform them into opportunities for growth. Let us remember that our weaknesses are not curses, but challenges. And it is up to us to decide how we want to meet them. Do we want to complain about them, or do we want to rise above them? Today, on this auspicious day, let us renew our pledge and vow to overcome our weaknesses. Let us dedicate ourselves to our goals and march forward with courage and confidence. Let us remember that our weaknesses are but illusions. They are not our real nature. Our real nature is divine. It is pure, it is perfect, and it is eternal. So let us awaken to our true nature and realize our true potential. Let us realize that we are not our weaknesses, but we are divine. The story of how Indra slew the demon Vritra is one of ancient India's most cherished tales. It has inspired countless works of art and literature over the millennia. But look a little closer at this epic battle in ULLC. It also contains a great teaching, a teaching that can transform your life. You see, when the gods were imprisoned inside the cosmic egg by the demon Vritra, their only hope was Indra. But what does Indra do? He drinks the super potent, mind-altering drug called Soma and proceeds to fall into a deep stupor, leaving the safety of the gods in the hands of two inexperienced young men. Can they win the war? Well, that depends on whether they can grasp the lesson that we learned from today's episode of the Hindu Mythology podcast. Before we begin, if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. And now let's begin. So we left off with the gods trapped inside the cosmic egg, and their only hope, the young warrior god Indra, drinking the Soma and falling into an alcohol-induced stupor. Meanwhile, the Devas entrust the task of waging war against the Asuras to two young and inexperienced gods, the twin celestial physicians known as Ashvins. Now, this is a pretty risky move. The gods are basically gambling everything on the strength and skill of these two guys who do and really have much of either. So why do they do it? Well, because that's what heroes do, right? You put your trust in someone else, someone younger than you, who might be less experienced, but who embodies the ideals that you once did when you were young. In doing so, you pass the torch. And this is exactly what the Devas do with the Ashvins. They recognize the importance of passing on the responsibility of protecting the cosmos. To the next generation, it's a way of ensuring the continuation of Dharma long after they are gone. But unfortunately for the Devas, the Ashvins aren't quite up to the task. Despite their best efforts, they just aren't strong enough to defeat the Asuras. This is where the story takes an interesting turn. The Asuras, seeing that they have the upper hand, start taunting the Devs, saying things like, "Oh, hey, Devs, looks like your party's over. More fun and games for you. You're all gonna die." And then the Asuras do something really stupid. Really, really stupid. Like torturing your enemies before you kill them, stupid. You know, when you're winning a fight, the smart thing to do is just finish off your opponent as quickly as possible. But these Asuras weren't smart. So they started torturing the female deities, which, come on guys, really? It's just basic common sense. Don't torture people, especially not women. Just kill them and move on. But no, these Asuras had to go and make things personal. They said to the goddess Aditi, "Hey, we know you're the mother of all the gods. Why don't you go ahead and give us a nice massage while we take a break from torturing your children?" So yeah, these Asuras weren't the brightest bulbs in the cosmic chandelier. But fortunately for the Devas, they also weren't very bright in the physical sense either, because if they had been, they would have noticed the approach of the brilliant white boar, the divine vehicle of the earth's goddess Prithvi, who charged forward to rescue the Devas from their attackers. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Wait a second, I thought the Asuras were on the side of the non-physical, the demons of chaos and darkness. How could they be attacked by a physical being like a giant boar? Well, that's a great question, and it gets at the heart of one of this myth's deepest lessons. You see, the Asuras weren't all powerful. They couldn't do magic. They couldn't fly. They didn't have access to higher knowledge. They were bound by the same limitations that affect every living creature. That is to say, they were subject to the laws of nature, which in this case means they needed to breathe. Now, it's not made explicit in any of the texts, but it is a pretty safe assumption that these demonic Asuras were probably using some sort of dark magic to hold their breath underwater. Maybe something akin to a Trishanku, a yogic breath control technique that allows practitioners to suspend their need for air for extended periods of time. But whatever their method, it wasn't foolproof. And eventually, the boar managed to block their air holes, causing them to suffocate and drown in their own dark blood. And in this way, the Devas were saved. Of course, the death of the asuras wasn't the end of the story. After all, they were just low-level soldiers. The real baddie was still out there, the demon Vritra, who had been watching the battle unfold from his lair with amusement. Now Vritra was probably chuckling to himself as he watched the asuras get slaughtered by a giant space boar. I mean, talk about overkill. But then he heard something that made him stop laughing. As the dying asuras retreated back into the depths of the ocean, he heard their anguished cries carried on the currents, and those cries were filled with fear and regret. What exactly were they so afraid of? Vritra wondered. And then he heard it, a sound that chilled him to his core, the laughter of the gods. You see, Vritra had made a critical mistake. He had underestimated his enemy. Sure, he had defeated the Maruts and was toasting to his victory over the gods, but he had forgotten about one crucial detail. All this time, the gods had been using the waters of the cosmic ocean as a means of communicating with each other. And now they were using those same waters to send a message directly to Vritra. They told him that they knew he was hiding in his fortress, that they knew he was afraid, and they told him that soon he would be dead. Now, this is a pivotal moment in the story. Up until now, Vritra had been confident, even arrogant. He had believed that the gods were too weak and scattered to mount a serious attack on his fortress. But now he wasn't so sure. He could feel the power of the gods growing stronger by the moment. And he knew that if he didn't do something drastic, he would be defeated. So he did the only thing he could think of. He escaped. Now, according to some versions of the myth, Vritra took on a new form, a huge horse, and fled to the distant Himalayas. But other tellings have him fleeing to the netherworld, escaping through the mouth of the great serpent king Muchakunda. Either way, his goal was the same, to hide away in a place where the gods couldn't reach him, but the gods found him. They tracked him down and confronted him wherever he went. The gods were there. They chased him through the sky, across the earth, and under the sea. They pursued him relentlessly until finally he was exhausted and had no choice but to stand and face his enemies. And what happened next was both tragic and glorious. With a heavy heart, Indra raised his mighty thunderbolt and struck Vritra down. Now, this is the climax of the story, the moment we've been waiting for. But what does it teach us? Well, for starters, it teaches us that no matter how powerful or invincible you may seem, there is always a weakness somewhere. You just have to find it. For Vritra, his weakness was his arrogance. He never took the gods seriously, never believed they could actually defeat him. And that fatal underestimation cost him his life. But it also cost the world. You see, Vritra wasn't just a bully. He was a tyrant who kept humanity trapped in endless night. His death brought light and warmth and growth to the world. But it could only happen because Indra found the courage to strike the fatal blow. Speaking of courage, this reminds me of something I learned from my yoga teacher. He used to tell me that real strength isn't just about flexing your muscles. It's about flexing your spirit. It's about facing the darkest parts of yourself and conquering them. If Indra had only trusted in the power of the Soma, if he had remained drunk throughout the battle, he would have failed. If he had relied only on brute force, Vritra could have protected himself indefinitely. But Indra listened to the rivers crying in the belly of the dragon, found the weakness in the night, and he dared to strike the fateful blow. In the end, it was this combination of wisdom, strategy, and bravery that led the gods to victory. So remember, my friends, true strength is not just physical. It is mental, emotional, and spiritual as well. And sometimes the greatest battles are won, not with brute force, but with a single, courageous act. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a thumbs up and a review. Thanks for listening. Why do we need to fight? Why do we need battles in our life? To fight against whom? You are fighting with yourself. Each one of us carries within us a Vritra, an inner demon, an old defeat, some fear, some despair. We all have this. You may ask why. Because that's how we are made. That's how we have evolved. This is our nervous system. The first thing that happens when something goes wrong is we blame ourselves. Why did I do this? Why am I like this? Why am I not as good as this person? Why am I not as beautiful as that person? And so we make ourselves small. Then slowly we learn to blame others. Because of this person. Because of what happened in this relationship. Because of what happened in my childhood. Slowly, We start blaming our fate. We say, "This is how I am. This is how it has to be. What can I do?" It becomes my fate. It becomes my destiny. In reality, we are all imprisoned by our own making. We are all imprisoned by our own past. We are all imprisoned by our own fears. We are all imprisoned by our own defeats. When someone comes and says, "You are divine, you are great, you are wonderful," we laugh at them. We may even get angry. But deep down, if we are honest, we know that person is trying to awaken something in us which we have killed long ago, is trying to awaken the divinity in us, the greatness in us, the potential in us. But we don't want to hear that. We don't want to be reminded of it because it hurts. It hurts to be reminded of something that we are not. The biggest prison in the world is your mind. You carry it with you wherever you go. It travels with you. It does not allow you to be free. So what does a prisoner do? A prisoner looks for an escape. He looks for a way out. Sometimes a prisoner finds a way out. That way is honesty. So this story teaches us three things. No. 1. Each one of us carries an inner demon, a vritra. It may be fear. It may be despair. It may be some old defeat. It may be some trauma, some hurt. All of us have this. Don't think you are the only one who has problems. Everyone has it. The question is, what do you do with it? The second thing that it tells us is that this vritra, this demon, this fear, this despair, this defeat, this trauma, this hurt, if we dare to look at it, if we dare to listen to it, and if we dare to strike at the heart of that darkness, we shall find our own liberation. There is a beautiful line in the Bible, "The truth shall set you free." What is the truth? The truth is, you are divine. The truth is, you are great. The truth is, you are wonderful. The truth is, you are enough. Just as you are, you don't have to become somebody else. You don't have to change. You just have to remember. Remember who you are, what you are capable of, and then step into that power. That is the only way to kill this vritra. To look at it, to acknowledge it, and to step into the light of your own awareness. Right. Then it loses its power over you. When a seeker asked Osho about love, he said, "Love is the highest state of human consciousness. It is the goal. It is the objective. It is the meaning of life." But he also said something very practical. He said, "You cannot love unless you have known yourself." Love is possible only when there is no longer anyone to love. When it is just you and everything is just you. Then you can love anything and everything. Why? Because everything is included. Nothing is outside. When a person thinks that I am separate from everything, I am the enjoyer. I am the one who enjoys life. I am the one who has pleasure. Others are there to give me pleasure. And he lives in his own little world of I and you. When a person lives in that world, love is not possible. Compassion is not possible. Kindness is not possible. Only when a person realizes that I am all that is, only then the barriers break and you enter into a totally different world. The world of separation disappears. The world of I and you disappears. There is just existence, and you are part of that existence, and you live in harmony with existence. And this is the ultimate goal of life. This is what we call enlightenment. This is what we call self-realization. Hello, everyone. In the Hindu epic Mahabharata, we hear the story of how the god Indra killed the demon Vritra. This is considered to be one of the most important stories in the Hindu tradition. A story about courage, hope, and most importantly, conquering the demons within ourselves. It's also a very intense and violent story, which is why I haven't shared it before now. But recently, a friend reminded me of this story and how relevant it is to our lives today. So here goes. The sage Gautama was meditating in the forest when the gods approached him. They were distraught because the demon Vritra had blocked the path of the river Saraswati and deprived the world of water, rain, and most importantly, the sacred waters of life. They begged Gautam to save them from this calamity.
Ow.
Gautam wasn't just any sage. He was a great sage, a Maharishi, which means he could easily have solved the problem with his mystical powers. But instead, he said, "This is your problem. You must solve it yourselves." And then he turned back to his meditation. The gods were furious. They could not believe that this selfish sage would abandon them in their hour of need. So they cursed him. They said, "You will become a human being for 36 years. Then they flew away in a huff to go and find another sage who could help them. But while they were gone, the demon Vritra continued to terrorize the world. Rivers dried up, crops failed, cattle died. People became desperate. It looked like the end of the world. Finally, the gods found another sage named Bharadvaja, who told them, "Look, I can help you, but I am very old and weak. I cannot do it myself. You must find Indra and ask him to kill the demon Vritra." Now, Indra was one of the gods who had originally approached Gautam, and he felt terrible that he hadn't been able to solve the problem. He was, after all, the king of the gods. But ever since that curse, he had lost his confidence and his power. In fact, he had become a shell of his former self. So when the other gods came to tell him about his new task, he refused, said, "I am not worthy of being called a god. I have no strength left. How can I kill that demon?" But the gods insisted, and so they took him along with them when they went to see Bharadvaja. As soon as Bharadvaja laid eyes on Indra, he knew what he had to do. He said, "Indra, you are strong enough. All you need is some encouragement." And then he gave him a drink. It was a magical drink, and immediately Indra regained his strength. In fact, he felt stronger than ever before. So he took a deep breath, picked up his famous thunderbolt Vetra, and charged out to kill the demon Vritra. And here, let me pause for a moment. When I hear this story, I don't just think of a battle between good and evil. I think of something much more personal. I see myself. We each have a Vritra inside of us. It could be a fear, a despair, a failure, a trauma, anything that weighs us down and steals our joy. Sometimes it feels as if all the rivers of life have been swallowed, and there is no way forward. But Indra did not wait for others to come and save him. He rose by himself, drank another draught of courage, whether Soma or sheer belief, took up his weapon, and walked straight into the darkness. That is true strength. So Indra walked for 7 days until he came across the cave where the demon Vritra lived. Now, according to some versions of the story, the cave was protected by a terrible dragon. But Indra didn't even spare a glance at him. He walked right through the cave, and suddenly he saw Vritra. The demon was huge. He was many, many miles long. And the sight of him filled Indra with doubt once again. But then he remembered the suffering of the people, the dying crops, the angry gods. So he steadied his aim and threw his thunderbolt. It hit Vritra on the forehead, and the demon roared in pain. Then Indra hit him again and again, and every time his thunderbolt landed, the earth shook. Finally, Vritra started to lose his shape. His body split open, and out came all the rivers that he had swallowed. There was the mighty Ganga, the Yamuna, the Saraswati. And when they flowed freely once again, the earth became green and fertile. The people rejoiced, and the gods returned to their abode. Praising Indra, when Bharadvaja heard about what had happened, he was pleased. He knew that Indra had not only saved the people, he had also saved himself. Now, some versions of the story say that after killing the demon, Indra was sad. He felt bad about killing so many innocent creatures. Vritra wasn't just a demon, he was also a great king. He had done a lot of tapas, and he had thousands of wives and children. So Indra went to see his wife, the goddess Danu, and told her about his sorrow. She listened patiently, and then she said, "Don't worry, my love. You did what you had to do. You brought the rains to the people. You brought life back to the earth. Be proud of that. As for the demon's family, they will live happily in the netherworld." I love this story because it shows how we can overcome any obstacle. All we need to do is find our inner strength. It may be hidden under layers of fear and insecurity, but it is always there. And all it needs is a little encouragement, like a good friend, a kind word, a helping hand, or maybe just a pat on the shoulder. Once we find that inner strength, once we pick up our weapons, whatever those may be, we must charge straight ahead without hesitation. Don't worry about the obstacles. Don't worry about the dragons guarding the caves. Face your fear and strike your thunderbolt. That's the only way to kill the Vritras of this world. Think about it. What are we afraid of? What demons do we fight? Some of us are afraid of public speaking. Some of us are afraid of commitment. Some of us are afraid of losing the ones we love. Some of us are battling sickness or addiction. Some of us have lost faith in ourselves or in humanity. These are our Vritras, and we must slay them. How do we do that? By facing them, by going into the darkness, by not letting them rule our lives. You know, there's a beautiful line in the Buddhist scriptures. It says if you want to conquer your demons, don't run away from them. Instead, walk towards them. And I believe this is exactly what Indra did. He didn't run away from Vritra. He walked towards him. Of course, it's easier said than done. All of us need that first step. We need that dose of courage to walk into the unknown. And that dose can come in different ways. For some of us, it may come in the form of a drink, as it did for Indra. For some of us, it may come in the form of a good night's sleep. For some of us, it may come in the form of a loving word from someone we care about. Whatever form it takes, we must grab onto it and hold on tight. Once we have that dose of courage, we must face our Vritras head on. Some of you may think, I don't have any Vritras. My life is perfect. I have everything I could ever want. Well, if that's the case, I envy you. But let me remind you that we all have problems. Some of us may not have obvious demons, but that doesn't mean we don't have any. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When we have nothing to complain about, that itself becomes a complaint. So take a moment to look within. Look at your habits, your routines, your choices. Are you living the life you truly want, or are you living the life others expect of you? Are you pursuing your dreams or someone else's dreams? Are you happy, or are you just pretending to be happy? These are questions you must ask yourself. We often think that Vritra was a terrible demon, but I wonder if he was really a demon. What if he was a god like Indra? What if he too was trying to do his duty? Can we imagine that? Can we imagine that both Indra and Vritra were gods with noble intentions, but they saw things differently? That's why they fought. That's why they had to destroy each other. And here I want to share something with you. When I look at the epics like the Rig Veda or the Mahabharata, I don't see just stories. I see philosophies, even sciences. Take this story, for example. You think it's just about a god killing a demon? I think it's also about two gods destroying each other. What happens when two strong personalities meet? What happens when two opposing viewpoints clash? We get destruction. And that destruction can be both beautiful and terrible. It can bring death, but it can also bring new life. So next time you face a Vritra, remember, it may not be an external enemy. It may be an internal one. Remember, your thunderbolt may not be a physical weapon. It may be a change in perspective. In the heart of ancient India, amidst the lush green valleys of the Himalayas, there lived a young boy named Devin. Now Devin was no ordinary boy. He had dreams that soared higher than the snow-capped mountains, dreams that whispered to him tales of adventure, excitement, and bravery. One day, while exploring the dense woods near his village, Devin stumbled upon an old, gnarled tree. Its branches, like the arms of an ancient sage, stretched out towards the sky. And as he leaned against its rough bark, he heard a voice. It was the voice of the great sage, Maharishi, and he was inviting Devin to his ashram. Devin's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and fear as he walked through the towering gates of the ashram. The sight that greeted him was both captivating and intimidating. There in the center, seated on a stone platform, was Maharishi, his eyes twinkling with wisdom and power. Over the next few days, Devin learned that Maharishi had the ability to control the weather. With a mere gesture, he could summon rain or disperse the clouds. With a soft word, he could calm the winds or beckon the sun to shine. But for all his powers, Maharishi was troubled. A darkness, he explained to Devin, was spreading across the land, straining the joy from people's hearts and the life from the very soil. This darkness, he said, could only be vanquished by the legendary Samudra Manthon, the churning of the ocean of life. But there was a catch. The last time Samudra Manthon was performed, it had unleashed a terrible demon, a demon of fear. And now, the thought of facing that fearsome demon terrified everyone. The other disciples were afraid, but Devin's heart burned with a different fire. He wanted to help Maharishi, but he also knew that to do so, he would have to face his own fears. Fears that had been holding him back, keeping him from truly living, from experiencing all that life had to offer. So, with a deep breath, he stepped forward, sat down in the lotus position, and closed his eyes, trying to still the pounding of his heart, trying to quiet the chaos of thoughts that threatened to overwhelm him. As he focused on his breath, he felt a calmness wash over him, a stillness that had never known before. And as the darkness within him began to lift, he saw a light, a tiny flicker that grew brighter with each passing moment. And then he remembered the words of the great sage. Strength is not the absence of trembling, but the courage to walk even while trembling. With newfound resolve, Devin opened his eyes and turned to Maharishi. "I am ready," he declared, his voice echoing with determination. Together, they embarked on a journey to the sacred ocean. As they walked, Devin's fear returned, whispering doubts and painting grim images in his mind. But with each step, Devin's inner light grew brighter, pushing back the darkness. When they finally reached the shore, Devin looked back at the path they had traveled. He realized that the journey had been within him, a journey from fear to courage, from doubt to faith. And as he took the first step into the water, the darkness that had been holding him back for so long began to dissipate. The ocean churned, not in anger, but in joy, for it sensed the triumph of the spirit. And as Devin emerged from the ocean, he was transformed. The darkness that had once clouded his heart was gone, replaced by a lightness that brought a smile to his face and hope to his eyes. He returned to the ashram, not just as a disciple, but as a beacon of courage, his inner light now shining brightly for all to see. News of his bravery spread far and wide, reaching the ears of everyone who had been held captive by their fears. Inspired by Devin's story, they too began to confront their fears, and in doing so, found their own inner strength. And so, under Devin's guidance and Maharishi's wisdom, the land began to heal, the rivers of life, joy, and opportunity flowing once more. For they had learned that the greatest battles are fought not on the outside, but within the human heart. And the bravest of warriors are not those who have never trembled, but those who have faced their fears and emerged stronger on the other side. As the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Devin sat by the river, lost in thought. He thought about his journey, about the darkness he had overcome, and about the light that now shone so brightly within him. Suddenly, a small figure emerged from the trees. It was a young girl, her eyes wide with wonder. "You are Devin the Brave," she exclaimed, "who has brought light back into our lives." And as she looked at him, Devin saw not just a young girl, but a reflection of his own journey, a reminder that the bravest of hearts are those that dare to love, to dream, and to hope, for it is in the depths of our darkest nights that our true strength is born. Now look at this verse again. Indra lives in every clap of thunder. But more importantly, Indra lives in the human heart, whenever we shatter the chains of despair. When we do this, when we break the chains of despair, what happens? We become gods ourselves. Why? Because being a god isn't about special powers or living on a distant mountain. Being a god is about your ability to bring light into existence by destroying the darkness within you. And that darkness is ignorance, fear, doubt, and despair. So let me ask you a question today. Do you believe that even in the darkest of nights, there can be one who dares to rise? Because if you do, then you are the god of your own story. Let me share another story with you, which will answer all your questions. Once upon a time, a small village was troubled by a monster. This monster would come every single night, snatch a child, and disappear into the forest. The villagers tried everything to stop this, but nothing worked. So they went to the king and requested him to build a strong tower, high walls around their village, so that the monster could not enter and take away their children. The king agreed, and soon a tall, strong tower was built around the village. After a few days, the king became overconfident, and he decided to test the strength of the tower. He ordered some soldiers to climb up the tower and see if it could hold them. One soldier climbed up, then two, then three, until suddenly the tower collapsed and all the soldiers fell down and died. Now this news spread like wildfire, and everyone was afraid to go near that tower. Everyone except one young boy named Karen. One day the king announced a reward, said, "Whoever climbs to the top of this tower and puts a flag up there, I will give him half of my kingdom." Many young men came forward, but each time they tried, the tower would collapse and they would lose their lives. But Karan, he did not care. He was just a young boy, but he was determined to win the reward and make his parents proud. Karan prepared himself well, practiced climbing trees and rocks, jumped over walls, and did everything he could to get stronger. Meanwhile, people started calling him crazy because everyone knew how dangerous that tower was, yet he was going to try. Finally, the day arrived when Karan would attempt to climb the tower. He wore comfortable clothes, ate a good meal, and then started his journey. He He climbed up and reached the top of the tower successfully, without any problems. But just as he put the flag out, the tower collapsed and he fell down. However, unlike others, Charon was not afraid. Instead, he stood up, brushed off the dust, and looked up at the tower. Then he started to smile because he knew now where he went wrong. Again, he started to climb up the tower. This time he climbed faster, stronger, and more steadily. Once more, he put the flag on the top, and again the tower started to collapse. But this time he was prepared. With all his strength, he held onto the tower and slowly started to fix it with all his might. As the sun rose in the sky, he completed the tower and planted the flag. When the king heard about it, he was shocked. He immediately came to see Charon and kept his promise. He gave him half of his kingdom and praised him for his courage and determination. And that is why, my friends, it is said that if you dare to face your fears and work hard, then no power on earth can stop you from achieving your goals. Think about it. If Charon had been afraid after seeing the tower collapse, then he would never have attempted it again. But instead, he faced his fear, learned from it, and fixed the tower himself. And that is what life is all about. Facing your fears and fixing them, breaking the chains of despair that hold you back and lighting up the world with your existence. So whenever you face failure, don't be afraid. Instead, learn from it and try again. And remember, my friends, true success comes to those who dare to chase their dreams no matter what the odds are. Now I will share another story with you. Once upon a time in India, there lived a great sage named Vyasa. He was an enlightened soul who had written the ancient texts of Mahabharata and Haravamsa. One day, one of his disciples approached him and asked, "Master, how does one attain enlightenment? What is the path to true wisdom?" The wise man smiled and replied, "You want to know the path to enlightenment? It is very simple. Just follow the 4 steps I am about to tell you." His disciple eagerly listened as the sage continued. The first step is called Shachana, which means cleanliness. Keep your body, mind, and soul clean. The second step is called Santosha, meaning contentment. Be content with what you have and never crave for more. The third step is called Yayana, which means to sacrifice. Give up all your bad habits and negative thoughts. And the fourth step is called Dhyana, which means meditation. Meditate on the divine and contemplate the mysteries of life. The disciple nodded his head, but he was still confused. He wanted to understand these steps better. So he asked, "How can I practice these steps in my daily life?" The sage smiled again and said, "For cleanliness, you must start by controlling your senses. For contentment, you must learn to live in the present moment. For sacrifice, you must give up your attachment to material things. And for meditation, you must find a quiet place where you can connect with your inner self." The disciple pondered over these teachings and realized that the path to enlightenment was not as easy as he had imagined. But he was determined to follow these steps and attain true wisdom. Now, my friends, let us reflect on these 4 steps and see how we can apply them in our own lives. The first step, cleanliness. To keep our bodies clean, we must practice good hygiene and eat healthy food. To keep our minds clean, we must think positive thoughts and avoid negativity. To keep our souls clean, we must be honest and compassionate towards others. The second step, contentment. We must learn to appreciate what we have and be satisfied with our possessions. Instead of always wanting more, we should focus on the beauty of simplicity and find joy in the little things in life. The third step, sacrifice. To truly be selfless, we must give up our attachment to material things and help others without expecting anything in return. We must be willing to let go of our ego and serve humanity with a pure heart. And the fourth step, meditation. To meditate, we must find a peaceful place and focus our minds on the divine. By doing this regularly, we can connect with our inner selves and attain a state of calmness and clarity. My friends, following these 4 steps will not be easy. It will require dedication, hard work, and patience, but the rewards will be immeasurable. We will attain peace of mind, true wisdom, and a deep sense of connection with the divine. So let us take inspiration from the great sage Vyasa and his disciple and strive to walk on the path of enlightenment. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the path to enlightenment is a journey of the soul that leads to infinite peace and bliss. Now I will share the last story with you. Once upon a time, a group of travelers were journeying through a dense forest. Suddenly, they heard a loud roar and were petrified to see a ferocious lion charging towards them. In a panic, they fled in different directions. Sometime later, they all met up and started to discuss what had happened. Each traveler shared their experience of escaping the lion, and they praised themselves for their bravery and quick thinking. However, one traveler remained silent. He did not boast or make excuses. Instead, he quietly walked away from the group. Curious about his behavior, the other travelers followed him and asked why he wasn't speaking. The quiet traveler pointed to a nearby tree and said, "Look, they saw claw marks on the tree, and they realized that he had been the lion's intended target." As the years passed, the story of the lion and the travelers became a popular tale, and the quiet traveler became known as the Lion Man. People would often gather around him and listen to his adventures. He would always speak modestly about his experiences. Whenever he saw young people showing off, he would tell them the story of the lion and remind them not to brag or make excuses, but to remain humble and truthful. And that is what we should do in our lives. No matter how difficult the situation may seem, we should face it bravely and honestly. We should not boast or make excuses, but remain humble and calm. Friends, these are the tales from ancient India that teach us valuable life lessons. These stories remind us to stay humble, to face our fears bravely, and to follow the path of righteousness. They also teach us to look beyond the physical world and to seek wisdom and enlightenment. Let us continue to learn from these timeless tales and apply their teachings in our daily lives. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you did, please hit the like button below and subscribe for more content.
Hello and welcome back. If you have listened to this tale, lift your eyes to the sky once more. When thunder booms, when rain falls, think that perhaps from ages past, Indra is still smiling. The story of Indra is not just for telling, it is for remembering. To be strong, to believe, to face the Vidura within us.
Only
Then will the rivers in our own hearts flow again. And if you wish for many such journeys from the Rigveda to Gilgamesh, from Hammurabi to Stonehenge, then walk with us.
follow Lasula_history stories so that every day you may step into a new adventure, from darkness into light, from the past into the present. For history is never old. It still breathes, it still echoes in every story we tell today. Now let's get started. The Vedic god. He who is called the King of Gods, one of the most important deities in Hinduism, also the most popular one among the Devas. His name is Indra, which means all-powerful, invincible. He is said to be the son of the cosmic man, Purusha, born from his sweat. Indra is a warrior. It's a weapon of choice, the lightning bolt Vajra. He rules the heavens from his celestial abode, the city of Amravati, home to all the gods. But despite being powerful and prosperous, the gods are troubled. A demon named Vritra has unleashed a long and terrible drought across the earth. All life is dying. People pray. But their prayers go unanswered because the rain clouds are hiding, refusing to release the water stored within them. The demon has blocked the channels of rainfall. He holds the secret to restoring life on earth, but refuses to reveal it. In this time of despair, the gods turn to their king. They ask him to find a way to defeat Vritra and end the drought. Indra looks at his people, their crops drying up, their cattle dying, their lives wasting away. Their hopes rest on him, so Indra prepares. He sharpens his Vajra. He surrounds himself with his bravest soldiers. Among them is a young warrior named Chicharata. He is brave and devoted, always ready to help his friends. He is loyal, too, to his king. He never lets Indra down. In fact, he will prove to be very useful in the fight against Vritra. But for now, as they set out on the journey, there is no hint of what the future holds. As the god of rain, clouds, and storms, Indra is quite literally the king of the skies. With the power of the mighty thunderbolt Vajra in his hands, he sets off to defeat the demon. His followers are with him, including the sage Dad Hayek, who guides them on their path to victory. But Vritra is a powerful adversary. As Indra approaches him, the demon unleashes his weapons. Thunder clashes with lightning. Rain lashes against wind. There is a fierce battle between the gods and the demons, but neither side can gain the upper hand. As the battle rages, Chicharata watches his comrades fall. One by one, the demons are too strong. They attack in vicious waves, No matter how bravely the gods fight back, they lose ground. The situation grows desperate. It seems like the demons may win. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, he sees an opening. With a surge of adrenaline, he charges forward. Pushing through the ranks of the enemy, he faces the demon Vritra. This is his chance. He has to do something. He has to help his king, to help the dying earth. He has to make the rain fall again. So he takes a deep breath, steadies his aim, and fires an arrow. It hits Vritra right where he is most vulnerable, causing the demon to collapse. The moment the demon's leader falls, his followers flee, vanishing into thin air. The sky clears, the clouds gather, and boom, the rain begins to pour. The drought ends, the earth rejoices, and the grateful humans look up at the sky and sing the praises of their king and his brave soldiers. Victory celebrations echo across the heavens. The gods rejoice, the people rejoice, the earth rejoices. Life flows back into the land. The river nourishes the fields again. Indra smiles, for he has saved his people. But he also knows that he could not have done it alone. He turns to his soldiers, to each one who stood by him, to each one who fought with him. And among them, he singles out Chitrarata, steps forward and places a hand on the young warrior's shoulder. He thanks him for his bravery, for his loyalty, for his skill. In that moment, Chitrarata feels the weight of Indra's gratitude, the honor of being recognized by his king. He bows his head in respect. He knows that he has done his duty. He is content. But Indra has more in store for him. He announces that Chitrarath's devotion and courage have earned him a special reward. From that day on, he will be known as the horse tamer, the charioteer of the rain god. He will drive the 7 white horses that pull Indra's chariot across the sky. He will control the winds, the rain, and the thunder. Every clap of thunder will be his drum. Every flash of lightning his signature. Every drop of rain his messenger. Forever bound to Indra, the other gods cheer. They celebrate the honor bestowed upon their comrade. They see the greatness in Chitrath. He has proven himself worthy of the highest praise. But Chitrarata remains humble. He accepts the responsibility with a sense of duty, knowing the importance of his role. He will serve Indra, he vows, and carry out his duties with utmost care. After all, it was his arrows that had struck the final blow against Vritra, ending the drought and saving the earth. And so, Chitrarata, the warrior, becomes Chitrarata, the horse tamer, the charioteer of the rain god. He drives the 7 white horses across the sky, controlling the winds, the rain, and the thunder. Each clap of thunder becomes his drum, each flash of lightning his signature, every drop of rain his messenger. He joins Indra in the celestial abode, Amravati, and together they continue to watch over the earth and its people. They ensure the rains come on time, bringing life to the land. They make sure the storms pass swiftly, leaving only rainbows in their wake. They listen to the prayers of the humans and respond when they call for help. And as the years turn into eons, the legend of Chitrarata grows. The humans tell stories about the hero who ended the drought, who tamed the wild horses of the sky, who became one with the rain god. They sing songs about his bravery, his skill, his loyalty, and most of all, his kindness. For even as he gained powers, he never forgot the suffering of the people. Even as he ascended to the heavens, he kept a part of his heart on earth. And so, whenever the rains fall on the earth, whenever the thunder roars across the sky, whenever a rainbow arches across the clouds, the people remember Chitrarata, the charioteer of the rain god. They know that behind every natural wonder, there is a story of heroism, a tale of bravery, a legend of kindness. This is a tale as old as time itself, a story that has echoed through generations, a myth that continues to inspire. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can bloom. That even when the skies are dry and the earth is thirsty, a single spark of courage can ignite the flames of change. It is a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, the unquenchable thirst for life, the unwavering pursuit of hope. This is the saga of Chitrarata, the horse tamer, the charioteer of the rain god, a legend that whispers through the rain, roars through the thunder, and shines through the rainbow. And as the cycle of seasons turns once more, this tale is reborn, carried on the winds of change. Nurtured by the showers of hope and illuminated by the promise of a brighter tomorrow, So as you sit beneath the canopy of stars, as you feel the rhythm of the rain on your skin, as you hear the melody of thunder in your ears, remember the story of Chitrarada. Remember the hero who dared to dream, who dared to fight, and who dared to win. For in his journey, you will find your strength in his courage, your inspiration, and in his victory, your hope. This is a tale that has echoed through time, a story that has captured the human spirit, a myth that continues to inspire. And as long as the rain falls on the earth, as long as the thunder roars across the sky, as long as a rainbow arches across the clouds, the legend of Chitrarada will live on, reminding us that even in the darkest of nights, hope is the brightest star. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, tap on the screen to follow Lisula_history story and never miss an upload. Step into a new adventure every day, from darkness into light, from the past into the present. For history is never old. It still breathes, it still echoes in every story we tell today.